Nice. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Dr. Drizzle, and we are standing outside of the National Park Service Visitor Center, which is part of the Pullman National Historical Park and State Historic Site. Now, that is a mouthful, my friends, but that's what it's going to take today to understand the breadth and beauty of this place. So many things we're going to learn. Now, we're not going to give you all the information on this one because we're coming back in March for another one, but we are excited to share with you. We're going to go to the screen for a moment and let me give you a few things to look at. I'll just let you know behind the scenes, it's really fun today. We have some strong winds here. So we have the assistant superintendent of the park hanging on to the tent to make sure it does not fly away. So if she were to fly away in the air, we'll try to turn the camera so you can see that. But again, we're at Pullman National Historical Park. We are very, very grateful to the park and also the Historic Pullman Foundation for allowing us to be here today. This is part of a new endeavor for Expeditions in Education called Experience the Parks. And we could think of no better place to kick off these events than at Pullman National Historical Park. In fact, for 2 weeks this year, we're going to be working in schools. We're going to be doing engineering projects, building Pullman Train Cars. We're going to be working on some new live stream material. We're writing lesson immersions for your teachers. And we're also providing free educator adventure experiences for teachers. So if you are anywhere near Chicago and are interested in coming here for a full free day of learning adventures, you're going to want to reach out to us. If you're sharing on social media today, we have the social media accounts up for myself, for Expeditions in Education, our new hashtag, Experience the Parks. And we also want you to tag at Pullman NPS and at Historic Pullman. We are in the state of Illinois, and what a beautiful day it is, except for the wind, which is actually dying down a little bit. We are sort of hanging out here in the heartland and are excited to share. This is a sign from Pullman, but we're going to tell you something. This sign has changed since this sign was up. We are now a National Historical Park, which is very exciting today that we're going to be talking. So take a look at this photo because you're thinking, what is Pullman about? Well, it's about so many things, but this happens to be a Pullman car. And these are the places at Pullman that you can visit when you come here for your own personal experience here at Pullman. Behind us, you probably see this beautiful building, but some of it's missing. The picture you're seeing now is a historic photo of Pullman. You'll notice that it's very symmetrical, which makes it very beautiful. Half of this is not here anymore, and we'll talk about why. But one of the most exciting things about today is we are meeting and greeting Ranger Alex. So let's go back to us and talk for a moment. Ranger Alex, thank you so much for being here today with us. This is very exciting.
Well, thanks so much, Dr. Drizzle. I'm so excited to be here with you today and also to talk about Pullman.
Well, where have you been before this? Because you have an interesting journey.
Yeah, well, I'm kind of different than a lot of Rangers. I just became a Ranger back in February of this year. Before that, I was an elementary school teacher. I taught all the grades from first grade to fifth grade. And when I was a reading specialist, I taught all the grades, kindergarten through fifth. And I really loved that, but I wanted to try something different. And so I decided to become a park ranger. And so now I get to do education programs with a lot of different kids. So we have a lot of school groups come down here, and I get to talk with college students and high school students and middle school and elementary and just do great education programs like we've been doing this week.
Well, you didn't grow up as a ranger, but you lived near some national parks. Can you tell us a few of those?
Sure. Well, I'm originally from New York on Long Island. And so there are several parks right by there. There's the Fire Island National Seashore. There's Sagamon. There's let's see, in the city itself. Well, one of my favorite places was the Statue of Liberty.
Absolutely.
Everybody knows that. So,
Absolutely. Yeah. And they have a huge or rich history about those places. So it kind of makes sense to me that you ended up here. I want you now to tell us a little bit about this place. You can talk right to the kids there.
Sure. Well, we're here in Pullman National Historical Park, and we're on the south side of Chicago. Originally, this wasn't part of Chicago. Many years ago, this was its own separate town called the town of Pullman. And why was it called Pullman? Why are we saying the word Pullman so many times? It's because it was named after a man named George Pullman. He was born in the 1830s and lived through the 1890s. And he created something that was really special. He built up a company from nothing to a giant company that built rail cars, and not just any rail cars that you would sit in today to just go from place to place in your city, but these were beautiful luxury train cars that not only could you sit and be comfortable in, but also go to bed, go to sleep, so you'd be nice and comfortable while you were sleeping. Originally in the 1880s, in the 1800s, the train travel was not especially comfortable. And so George Pullman had this great idea to take these cars and make them so luxurious and fabulous and comfortable that everybody would want to be on the train with that. So as train travel developed more and more, they built these great train cars that people wanted to be in and go from city to city a lot faster than they could ever before. And his business became so well done that he needed to build a new factory in order to produce all these cars for all the train companies, for all the railroads that wanted to use them. And so started in 1880, they started to build not only the factory here, like the building behind me, but also a town where the workers could live, and they could live right next door. And so they wouldn't have to travel very far to come to and from work. And so the town of Pullman was created right next to the Pullman factory. And if you ever come down to Pullman itself, you can see about 90% of those original homes are still there from all the way back from the 1880s. And there are these beautiful red brick buildings with black and green trim and some red. It's really pretty there. When people moved into, when the workers moved into the town, it was really amazing for the time because it had a lot of things that a lot of workers wouldn't have had back then. For example, they had indoor plumbing. So they had running water. They had inside toilets, which was a big deal in those days. A lot of factory workers wouldn't have had those in their regular apartment buildings or in their own individual houses back in the 1880s. They would have had to use an outhouse. But in here, it was nice and comfortable inside. These beautiful brick buildings made it nice and cool in the summertime and warm in the and warmer in the wintertime. They had great big windows to let all this natural light in. They had a gas pumped in so they could have gas lighting. These were really comfortable houses, especially for that time. So people really wanted to be here. And the Pullman Company did a lot of nice things for them. They collected their trash. They were able to keep the landscaping looking nice and pretty. They had a great water system. They had sports fields and teams and bands. They built these buildings, these public buildings, like an indoor shopping mall for people to go to. They had a really big market hall where people could buy their groceries and meats and vegetables and things like that. There was even a church for people to come and visit on Sundays or other days of the week. Of course, those weren't the only workers for the Pullman Company. There are lots of workers who came to work here in the factory, but there are also other workers who worked on the train cars themselves. People like cooks and waiters to be in those dining cars, attendants in some of those parlor cars. And of course, what we talk a lot about here, the porters and maids of the Pullman Company. And those porters did a really great job of not only handling people's luggage, but also taking care of the passengers on board. They would make up their beds at night and take care of them again in the morning. If people needed their shoes shined, they would take care of that for them. If they needed help taking care of their children or animals, they would help take care of that too. They were supposed to be on duty 24 hours a day. So in case you needed a drink of water at 3 in the morning, a Pullman porter would come and get it for you. It was not an easy job, though. They had to spend a lot of time away from their families, weeks, sometimes even months away from their families to go on these long train trips. And it wasn't really well paid either. Pullman porters got most of their money from tips. So they had to provide this really good service in order to get paid. Now, these porters were almost entirely African-American people. These men had originally had been formerly enslaved people. So right after the Civil War, when they were freed, a lot of them needed jobs and wanted jobs. And George Pullman sought these workers out to help him build up his train business. So a lot of these workers knew how to give really great customer service and take care of people. So it was a hard job. They were on duty so long, any hour of the day they could be called upon. So it was not an easy job. Also, the workers here also had their own problems too. So for example, in 1893, there was a big depression in this country. There was a big economic downturn. So a lot of companies went out of business, and a lot of people didn't have jobs. They didn't have any money coming in. And because of that, that means train travel really went down, really reduced. Not so many people were traveling so much. And so because of that, the Pullman Company let a lot of their workers go, and some of them, they reduced their pay, sometimes so much that they really couldn't make ends meet. After they paid their rent to the company, because the company owned their houses, there was very little left over for food and clothes and other things that not only the men, but also their families, their women and children who lived in the town too. So it became a big deal. And the workers came to Mr. Pullman in the factory and said, could you reduce our rents so we can have more money to feed ourselves? And the Pullman Company said, no, we can't do that. Because if your landlord was somebody else and not just part of the company, well, they wouldn't just be reducing your rent too, that they would keep the rents the same way. And so the workers, they didn't like this one bit. And so they're desperate, and so they decided to go on strike. And a strike means that they refused to do work until their demands were met. And so they went on strike in May of 1894. And it was a big deal. About 90% of the workers walked off. And because of that, there were no cars being made on these grounds. And that wasn't such a big deal until later on. The union that they belonged to, the American Railway Union, they decided to have a vote to see whether or not they would start a boycott or refuse to touch any train that had Pullman cars attached to it. And they voted to agree to do that. So later that summer, these workers went on strike all across the country. And that means that no cars were moving. No of these train cars were moving around. People couldn't get from city to city. And things like vegetables and fruit couldn't go from city to city either. They stay rotted in their fields or in their warehouses, and they couldn't get to the cities. People all over the country were really unhappy about this because, well, people couldn't get their food. They couldn't travel from place to place. Goods that were made in one place couldn't travel to another. And so that was a big deal. And so everybody thought that, well, Mr. Pullman would really listen to the workers and reduce their rent or give them more money, but he didn't. And so he and other railroad owners went to the President of the United States, who at that time was Grover Cleveland, and they came up with a plan to break this strike. And so what they did was they attached a mail car to all the trains that had Pullman cars attached as well. And that's a problem because you're not allowed to mess around with the US mail. Blocking the mail was a federal offense. And because of that, that allowed the president to send in troops to stop the boycott, to evict the boycotters and to get control of those trains so they could move again. And because of that, the strikers and those boycotters didn't like that. So there was a lot of violence. There was a lot of riots going on where the troops would attack the boycotters, and some people were shot and killed. And also millions of dollars worth of train cars were destroyed in these big riots. And after about a month of this, unfortunately, the workers at the factory went back to work. They did not get their demands met. And so they had to go back to work. And so the strike was broken, and not everybody was happy about that. Of course, people were kind of angry with Mr. Pullman for not listening to the workers. And so his reputation took a really big hit. But one big thing did happen because of that, and that was Labor Day becoming a national holiday. So if you have off in September during Labor Day weekend, you can thank the workers here at Pullman for that.
That is a huge story, Ranger Alex, going from this amazing planned community, these beautiful Palace Pullman train cars, to the ability to not communicate well with each other and to not listen to each other. So we had what we call the strikes. Now, you heard a couple words there that may be unfamiliar to you. So I want you to drop in the chat window what you think the word boycott means. And I also want you to actually drop into the chat window what you think the word strike means, because it might not be something that you hear all the time. However, if you're following the news or the CNN at 10 for students, you'll notice that just recently we've had several strikes. Yeah. We've had it in the entertainment world. We've had it with auto workers. So we're still dealing with these moments where we don't get along with each other really well. Mm-hmm. Instead of listening and having really deep, meaningful conversations, we just like to fight. And we know that our students are trying to change that in the world. So a lot of really cool things happened here, and a lot of sad things happened here. But out of it comes this huge story that Pullman is now interpreting for people who come here. I want to see if we had any definitions come in for any of those words. Miss Zimmerman, do we have anything?
We did. We had a few. One we had was a protest, and a strike was to stop something. One student thinks it may have something to do with the Boy Scouts. But listen to this. One of our classes just read the book Esperanza Rising, and the workers in California in the 1920s went on strike.
Absolutely. What a great connection there. A wonderful book. But we also have another national park site in California, the Cesar Chavez National Monument, that we have visited. Mm-hmm. And Cesar Chavez was all about helping the farmers, the migrant workers in their strikes. So our national parks are very connected in many ways. Now, I know that our kids like trains.
Oh, yeah.
I wonder, just by raising your hand in the Zoom right now, if you've ever been on a train before. You know, we have trains that are in the big cities. We have something called metros. Here we have in Chicago, we have the L, which means elevated trains. But you may have been on a train at a national park. Glacier has some trains there. You may have been on a train at Disney World. Or you may have been on something called the Amtrak. So the train world has really grown quite a lot over the last few years. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe you have some props today, some original pieces of equipment and artifacts. Can you share those with us? And I'm kind of going to stand beside you in case I need to help you lift any of those heavy things.
Well, the first thing I do want to show, though, is a model, though, not something from the old days, but a model of one of the Pullman cars. And this is what they kind of looked like. Some had different colors on them, but you can kind of see that they were very sturdy. They were very long. This one probably was about 80 feet long, made of steel. And it was a very comfortable ride at the time. So that's kind of what one of the Pullman cars from back in the early 20th century would have looked like.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yesterday, we were at Poe Classical School here in Chicago, and we had fourth graders actually designing their own train cars, and they look a little bit like that.
Yeah.
They did a good job.
They tried to do all the stuff on the inside, the different benches and the beds that folded down. It was really great to see them do that.
Right. Well, what else do you have here?
Okay, so let's go into some big tools, shall we?
I'm ready to help you with this one.
So this over here, look at this. It's a big old wrench. It's pretty heavy, yeah. It's a wrench because these cars were really big and they were very, very heavy. They weighed many, many tons. And so sometimes they had these bolts to hold on to things. And in order to turn a bolt, a really big bolt, you need a really big wrench.
Well, I want to remind kids, as you're watching this right now, maybe you can sketch some of these props, artifacts that you're seeing. So this one is about
About a yard, half long,
maybe 40 inches long. If I do my little trick here, a little bit 40, and pretty heavy, but you've probably seen something smaller.
Oh yeah.
In a toolkit at home. So this is your wrench. So let's draw this, make sure we have a little ending here.
Crescent part here.
And then about 40 inches, and it's really strong. Can I try it by myself? Yes, I feel awesome right now. So write this down and spell out the word wrench. What else do we have?
Okay. Well, something not quite as heavy, but just about as long.
A paintbrush.
Not quite for paint. This would have been for oil and lubrication to really get into some of those crevices where you really needed to have some oil, because some of these metal parts were rubbing against each other, you know, frictions increasing the heat, and you needed that oil to cool it down so it wouldn't just melt. And sometimes those places were really, really hard to reach. So that's why this long, long brush would come in handy.
So go ahead and get a little quick drawing of this one. And this was to take care of the oil, to clean up the oil. What else do we have?
Okay, so now we've got the heaviest one.
Ooh,
so you thought that last one was heavy?
I'm ready.
It's even heavier.
I'm ready.
Okay. Ugh. Okay.
Oh, wow. This is heavy.
Can you guess what this is?
Something to pull out teeth.
Oh, gosh. For like a elephant?
Yes.
Well, close. This actually would pull something out, but this would be down on the ground, kind of like down here. And it would pull up the spikes that attach the rails to the ties, the rail ties. In fact, you can think of it kind of like a claw hammer, where you see this. You got it?
I got it.
Okay.
I got it.
So if you have a claw hammer and you want to take out a nail, you kind of stick the nail in between here and you pull and it'll come up. And so the same kind of things happens here. You put the spike in here and pull, and then it'll come out.
So a word that you can use with this one is called torque. So that's what you have, the pressure that you put on the spike or the pressure that you put on the hammer for the nail or the screw is called torque, Torque. And I also heard Ranger Alex mention the word friction. So somewhere in your drawings and illustrations, you need to have that word. I'm going to give you this back because, it is really heavy.
Yeah, it definitely is.
I'm thinking about things now that aren't as heavy. What else do we have that's going to really get these kids excited?
Well, this is actually one of my favorite things.
A brick.
It's just a brick.
Just a brick.
Well, not just a brick.
Oh, well, what kind of brick?
Well, this is a brick that was made by the Pullman Company itself, because they set up their own brickworks here in order to produce brick for all the factory buildings and for the town. But what's special about this is this really cool design on it. And what do you think? Why do you think they made that design?
I don't know, but it looks like the bottom of my really good hiking shoes.
That's a really good connection, because these bricks were on the floor of the factories, so people wouldn't slip. This was a non-slip surface. So not only was it kind of pretty, but it was a way for workers who might be working around oil or other lubricants or paints or things like that, or if there was water on the ground, so they wouldn't slip and hurt themselves. So this was a non-slip surface, just like a fancy hiking boot might have these ridges to help you hold on to the trail.
So a brick, but with a grip on the front of it, an indention, if you will. So make sure you have that.
Nowadays, you'd probably have like a rubber mat or something like that
That makes
down.
sense, especially like in the shower.
Mm-hmm.
Have those little, I like
Talk
it.
about lack of friction there.
True. We won't talk about falling in the shower. I've only done that once. All right. I'm looking at something that I'm excited about because I love to draw.
Well, this is great then for you. This is an antique set of drafting tools, all sorts of compasses and rulers and measures and things like that. And they needed to have these here at Pullman because they drew the plans to all of the cars, not only the cars themselves, but all the things that went into the cars. Because there's so many little devices that needed to be created, that needed to be built by the factory workers here so that people could enjoy the experience. So there were all these blueprints for this. And in fact, I have a really neat blueprint to show you.
I like it. And kids, while he's picking that up, something I see in here that you probably use in your math class is a compass. So you're going to use that to draw circles. And then we have sort of a protractor here also. So something that they may already have in their classroom to use for mathematical scale.
Yes, because they need to be able to accurately record angles and curves and things like that. And so those tools might have helped draw a blueprint like this.
This is really neat. Now, last time I was holding it, it was upside down, but this time we're good.
Yes.
I don't know if we can get any closer with this, but you know what? I don't want you to tell them yet what they think this is.
It is really neat, though, because it has all the exact measurements on it and some things like what the materials are made of. But yes, if you were just glancing at this, it might be really hard to tell exactly what it was. I know it's not a train car.
So in the chat window, what do you think this is? Now, it's going to be something that is used here, that was used for the time. They weren't creating it for another place. In the Pullman community, things were created for them. So we're going to turn that down just a little bit. Got to get the glare off.
Oh, yeah.
So, Miss Zimmerman, has anybody got a educated guess about this?
Miss Pitt's class thinks it could be a blueprint of a building.
Okay.
Sterling students thinks the blueprint looks really cool, and they're right.
They are.
Could be the building behind them. Two classrooms think it's the building behind you.
All right.
It could be a train.
Could be a train. Now, I think we're not giving them the best advantage of this because they can't read the writing. But can you go ahead and tell us what this is?
Sure. Well, this is not a building, even though it's all rectangular shaped and like that. This was a box to put ice in, so it could be used as part of an early air conditioning system, where the fans would like blow over the ice and blow cold air, so it would be nice and cold, cool inside of the train cars. So it would have this. So one of the ways you could tell that the clues of that parts of this are made from cork, and cork is a really good insulator. And so it would keep the ice from melting while the air was blowing on top of it. So yeah, this was part of an air conditioning system that they put onto the rail cars.
I like that. So kids, I'm going to ask you to ask your parents or the folks that you live with if they have any blueprints laying around the house that were originally part of the blueprints of the design of their own house. Maybe even the principals may have some blueprints of your school, so you can sort of see how this mathematically lays out. Very interesting there.
Yes. My old school, before I left it, was doing some rebuilding, and they had the blueprints out of what the new playground would look like and the new wing, and it was really interesting to look at.
And we can build those ourselves also. So I know we have two more things, and let's save the smaller thing for last, because I think that's sort of the big deal here. But are you going on a trip?
No, not today. But this is an antique suitcase from the 1930s. This would have been one of a set of 4 for women's, traveling kits.
I like these. I don't think I don't really like the newfangled stuff as much. I like this. And it has, if you turn it around, it has the latches on it that you move to the side and they pop up, which I think is kind of cool. And it is made of not like ours today or just kind of plasticky. This is actually fabric that is sewn into here, and we have these beautiful beautiful stitching here. All right, so I want you, before he shows the last thing, I want you to guess what it's going to be. Now let me give you some hints. We are at Pullman National Historical Park. We have talked about the strike. We've talked about the Pullman cars. And now we are going to see if you can guess what this last thing is. So drop in the chat window what you think we're going to show you for our last prop. Miss Zimmerman, do we have any guesses?
The guesses are popping in, but 3 different observations have come in. One that is seeing a connection between what you've shown and Polar Express. one between the luggage and Winnie the
Mhm.
Pooh, or and also perhaps the luggage and an Harry Potter.
Oh,
I
interesting.
love that, which has a connection to a train.
Mhm.
Exactly. So we
I
are
was thinking of
you are about to show a train, or old crusty bread, or
Old crusty
flag.
bread. All right, well, let's show them. I don't want to leave them
okay, the
waiting anymore.
suspense.
This is so exciting, kids, because this is the real deal.
So you guys can probably tell that I like my hats because of my spiffy ranger hat. I have another hat to show you. Now, this is a Pullman porter's hat. The original hats that those porters who worked on board the train, we can hear trains right now, actually. That was nice timing.
It was nice time.
But this was a Pullman porter's hat. Now, most of Pullman porter's hats were blue, and the porters who wore blue, they worked inside of the train cars and took care of the passengers. This one was a little bit faded, but it was red. And this one was for just porters who were working with the baggage, who took care of the baggage and made sure people's bags got on the train at the right time and got off and returned to the people when they got off. So this is a very amazing piece of history. And it says Pullman Porter right on the front there.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Well, I want everyone to sort of stand back a little bit from your audio because I'm going to share one more thing with you before we start asking some questions. So hang on to see if you recognize this. Now, obviously, this was not from back in the day, but it is a good model of an old-time train whistle.
Mm-hmm.
Ranger Alex had one yesterday, and I was so excited. I didn't take his. I was going to, but I bought my own. So we also have a train whistle here. I was going to use it, but then the real train beat me to it.
It was a lot louder, too.
A lot louder. And I'm trying to be a little bit careful here. All right. So a couple things before we end this amazing day together. I want to talk about the challenge. If you've watched the National Parks Expedition Challenge, and when we were here with Ranger V. Amber, we asked you to create a sustainable house that is modeled after the Pullman community, where everyone has everything they need. But we wanted you not only to make it sustainable, but we wanted you to make it affordable to all. We're going to be using the skills of collaboration, communication, critical thinking, and creativity. I'm going to see right now if anyone has any ideas of what they would use material-wise to build their sustainable homes, or if they have any ideas of what their homes would look like. So, Ms. Zimmerman, I know that this challenge is new to this group, but do we have anybody that would like to go live on camera and share ideas for designing their own homes built after the model of the Pullman community?
Okay, it looks like Mount Sterling Elementary has a lot of hands up, so I'm not sure if that teacher wants to come. Let's see. Yes, Mount Sterling Elementary, go ahead and come off mute and share your ideas.
Okay, tell them.
I would use
Really loud.
I would use wood and
Okay.
metal for it.
Okay.
And some drinks and food.
You would have it make your own food. Okay.
I like that.
Good job.
We have someone else? I will tell you a fun fact while we're waiting. The toilet systems at Pullman were very unique.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, they were gravity fed. So in the park, and I will send you a short video of this, in the museum behind us, or the visitor center, we have an example of the toilet. And when you pulled the chain, the water went up into the box. And here's what's more fun about this. The cleaned water after we used the restroom actually went into their gardens, I read, and was used to water the vegetables out there. So they were very sustainable.
There are these big farms all around us, and it just got pumped right out there. Yeah.
How cool is that? Because you're not wasting any water. Yeah. All right. Who else?
Looks like Mrs. Manigo's class has some hands raised. If you want to have somebody come up and share an idea. In the chat, someone said that we're suggesting they would use Play-Doh and toothpicks.
No, wait. So you're going to tell them you would build it next to a creek and grow your own vegetables.
Okay, hold on. Mrs. Manigo's class, will you unmute and share your idea?
My name is Jada, and my idea would be bricks, and I would have
You're doing great. Keep going.
I would have a lot of windows for the sun.
I love that. And I love the idea that you're using bricks. Bricks are great insulators, Ranger Alex. They keep you cool in the summer and they keep you warm in the winter. So that's a very smart, sustainable building material. Thank you for sharing that, Jada.
My house is made of bricks.
Nice.
All right, Mount Sterling has another idea for us.
My name's Addison, and I'll make my home made out of bricks and
What'd you say about next to a
creek for some water.
I love that. And I like that you're using the idea of getting your water from a local creek. It's going to save you some steps for one reason. You could probably even create a gravity-fed pumping system to get the water into your house.
Yeah.
And you're using water that's already there. Miss Zimmerman, if we have one more that could share, that would be awesome.
It looks like Miss Winger's class has a couple of hand raised.
Great. Miss Winger from Texas.
Okay. My name is Suri, and I would build my house out of wood and bricks. And if that was economic, then I would build my house underground.
Underground, how cool is that? Boy, that's going to take a lot of pressure off of air conditioning and heating to build it underground. And it also would probably save it from some weather experiences that we may have. Very smart. Kids, what gets me the most excited about listening to you when you come up with these ideas is that you're not worried about failing. You are, I'm going to try any idea that I have, and I'm going to create that idea. And if it doesn't work, guess what? I'll try something else. I love it. I want to give you one fun fact before we have to say goodbye, which always makes me sad. But check out the screen here. The fun fact is Pullman National Historical Park was used to, let's see if I can get my clicker to move. Can we get, let's see. Can you fix my screen there a minute, Steve? We're going to go back to only one little technical issue besides Assistant Superintendent Sue flying away. So let's go back to the screen. This place was used as the inspiration for what movie? Anybody have an idea? I kind of have a little picture up there to spark your mind, your imagination. I think
someone mentioned it earlier, too.
I think someone did. You had a connection to this. Miss Zimmerman, do they know which movie it is?
The Polar Express.
The Polar Express. Absolutely. In fact, I believe it was in one part of this site where they actually used the actual photos, the design, when he goes to meet Santa, right? So how cool is that? Pullman National Historic Park, George Pullman, train cars, the wonderful Pullman porters and maids. The sad part of the fighting and fussing, but they were standing up for what they believed in. The invention of Labor Day, how cool is that? You guys get your own holiday named after things that happened here.
We do.
And the community that was built and that still stands today. In fact, we have something called the Pullman House Project that is sort of new here, where you can go in and see some of the houses in their glory. But there are still many homes here that people live in that were here during the time. Teachers, if you want to reach out to my friend Ranger Alex, I'm going to give you his email right here on the screen. And I want you to write this down, make sure you have it, because he is sitting here waiting for you to reach out and talk to him. And so grab that. And I think Miss Zimmerman can drop that into the chat window for us. I want to thank you so much for joining us here. To Assistant Superintendent hanging from the poles, she is back now. She did fly off for a moment, but the people brought her back. To Ranger Alex, so I love that we've become friends and can't wait to continue our friendship.
I'm so glad that you're going to be coming back here again, and we'll be able to do this all again.
I'm excited too. To the Historic Pullman Foundation for their support to get us here. To Superintendent Terry, to Ranger Lisa, who went with us yesterday, to the amazing staff that helped us set up and carry everything out here. Pullman truly is a community of good humans. So on behalf of Dr. Drizzle, Ranger Alex, we are out of here. Bye, everybody, and have a great day. We'll see you back in March for Experience the Parks at Pullman. Bye-bye.